Tonight, Ontario is set to expand eligibility of COVID-19 booster shots to anyone 50 or over.
I think, again, going down a little bit will capture some of those breakthrough cases.
Rising COVID cases and the Omicron variant prompting the province to speed up distribution of booster doses, with the announcement expected tomorrow. Plus,
it's a lot of money. $210 million is a lot of money.
Ontario's Auditor General finds thousands of ineligible businesses received COVID relief money from the province. What the Ford government has to say. Plus,
ski hills are officially back open and people are happy to hit the slopes again.
Oh, it's amazing. Perfect conditions, perfect weather. It's a beautiful day out here.
Here's hoping ski resorts can stay open the full season this time. That's what they're hoping for. I'm Ali Chiesa, and I'll have that story coming up.
Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. CBC News has learned the Ontario government will be announcing tomorrow that it will be lowering the age of eligibility for COVID-19 booster shots. Now, this comes just 2 days after the province said it is reviewing its vaccine strategy in light of the Omicron variant. Jessica Ng has the details.
Two healthcare experts tell CBC News tonight the provincial government is set to make a big change regarding who can get their COVID-19 booster shots. The sources say the Ministry of Health tomorrow will make an announcement that anyone who's 50 and up can get their booster shot starting in mid-December. The sources have inside information about the conversations around vaccines. Peel Region's Medical Officer of Health encourages everyone to get their third dose if they're eligible, but says you'll still be considered fully vaccinated with only 2 doses.
At this point in time, 2 doses continues to remain the recognized standard for protection in order to access a provincial vaccine certificate.
Dr. Zane Chegla of McMaster University says lowering the age of eligibility will help capture some of the breakthrough cases, but it still won't address where the bulk of the new and more serious cases are coming from, and that's the unvaccinated.
The rate of hospitalization amongst people who get a breakthrough case, 50 to 60 are about 1 to 2%. Going down a little bit will capture some of those breakthrough cases. The healthcare demand right now is not being faced by people that are getting or needing their third doses. The healthcare demand right now in Ontario is because of people that have not taken their first doses.
Right now, those who are eligible for booster shots include healthcare workers, caregivers, and residents in congregate settings, First Nations adults and their household members, individuals receiving chemotherapy and immunosuppressive treatments, and adults aged 70 and older. The slate of change is good news as we head into the holiday season with more indoor gatherings planned, as well as the threat of the new Omicron variant. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
More than $200 million of Ontario taxpayer money went to businesses that were not eligible for COVID relief funds. Now, that's the biggest revelation in today's report from Ontario's Auditor General. She also found out that the Ford government is not trying to recover the money. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has more.
Lockdowns and pandemic restrictions meant no business for a lot of small businesses all over this province. For months, their owners heard repeatedly that they'd get financial help from the provincial government.
I'll do everything in my power to support you, and we'll never forget the sacrifices you're making.
But when that money started to flow, companies that should not have received any of it got a whole bunch. Ontario's Auditor General found that more than 14,000 ineligible businesses received COVID relief money. All told, those companies got more than $200 million from taxpayers.
But it's a lot of money. $210 million is a lot of money.
Auditor Bonnie Lissick says the government did not put the program together carefully.
And it is very troubling that you have an IT system in place that is distributing, not catching applications that, and distributing money to people that might not be entitled to it.
Premier Doug Ford's response?
When we're rushing the money out the door to support the small businesses that were in desperate need of it, unfortunately, you're going to see some fraud.
Fraud wasn't actually the big problem, according to Ford's own finance minister.
There are some that were clearly fraudulent, and so the investigations team is going after that, and those bad actors will, but that's a fraction of the $210 million.
And as for rushing money out the door, the government did not even launch the program until January of this year, so the payments didn't actually happen until long after lockdowns began.
10 months later, they basically shove a half-baked, slapdash program together in a matter of 2 days. That's a problem.
They're just not a competent government. And I've been saying this consistently throughout the pandemic.
It's just a slap in the face of so many struggling small businesses who are fighting to stay alive and who actually did not receive money.
From the lobby group for small business, a slightly different take.
There perhaps was not enough support provided to businesses, especially those that were locked down, well through August, September, October of this year.
The auditor revealed that the government is not pursuing the ineligible businesses that got COVID money and has written off all $210 million as unrecoverable. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Another issue the Auditor General pointed out, wait times for outpatient surgeries got even worse over the past year. Now this, as Premier Ford announced today, a new hospital project in Mississauga and promised to tackle hallway medicine. Lorena Redekop has more.
I think this is a massive announcement, Canada's largest build for a hospital.
Premier Doug Ford spoke outside the Mississauga Hospital, saying it'll be rebuilt, turned into a new state-of-the-art facility, and the Queensway Health Centre in Etobicoke will be expanded, all costing billions of dollars, adding more than 500 hospital beds.
We're making good on our promise to end hallway health care.
But today, the Auditor General found some areas of healthcare have worsened. Waits for day surgeries increased, in some cases by 57% in the past year. Perhaps not a surprise given COVID-19, with surgeries cancelled for months. She also found surgeries in the same hospital can have vastly different wait times. An example, one ophthalmologist had a wait time of more than 5 months. For another, it was a month and a half.
But surgeon wait times are not tracked or publicly reported in Ontario. In contrast, Alberta and British Columbia publicly report wait times by surgeon.
Plus, she found a third of hospitals had underused operating rooms.
It's shameful. How can the Premier let operating rooms sit idle and not hire more nurses and doctors in appropriate timelines and pay them properly, frankly, to get Ontario patients the surgeries that they need?
The Auditor General also found surgery wait times can be 3 times longer, depending where you are in the province. The Ontario Medical Association wants a new intake system to give patients more choice.
You're not relying on historical referral patterns. Patients often say, yes, I want the shortest wait. So if that means I have to travel 2 hours, drive to downtown Toronto or drive to North Bay, I'm willing to do so.
He'd also like to see outpatient surgeries done in separate facilities, freeing up other hospitals to focus on more complex procedures. Like the government's hospital build announced today, those changes would take years. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Mississauga.
An 8-year-old girl has died and 10 others were injured in a crash in London, Ontario last night. Now, it's still an active investigation, but police have been careful to say there is no indication the crash was intentional. Ellen Morrow has the latest.
Gestures of mourning at the crash site, flowers and teddy bears placed where an 8-year-old girl's life was ended. This community devastated.
It's my neighborhood. I'm a mom. I love my city, and this breaks my heart. No parent is supposed to bury their child.
A local Girl Guides group was walking along this stretch of sidewalk at exactly the wrong time. The tragedy began at about 6:45 last night. A car coming through that intersection there behind me, hitting at least one other vehicle, a light post and a small tree before ramming into the pedestrians, along with the 8-year-old who died from her injuries. 9 others were struck, their ages ranging from 6 to 40 years old. Andrea Parsons was the first to lay flowers.
I started crying when I heard about the little girl, because I just thought it's right close to Christmas. Like, the poor parents, they've probably got a present. It just breaks my heart.
A neighbor of mine saw them walking along in their brightly colored snowsuits just before it had happened.
Grant Beamish saw the horrific aftermath.
It was tragic, and I mean, I was also thinking about the little ones who hadn't been injured because they're witnessing this, and I mean, these were little girls.
Remnants of the crash remain. A 76-year-old woman was behind the wheel. Police say there's no evidence this was an intentional act.
There are no arrests and no charges laid. This is an ongoing investigation.
Nerves are still frayed in this city after a Muslim family was killed in the spring. A London man accused of running them down with his vehicle in an act of hate.
Boy, what a year it's been. And this is when we need our fellow Londoners to rally, to come together and support each other. Be kind, be careful.
London's mayor paying his respects alongside Ontario's premier.
This is such a tragedy. I want to give my condolences, my prayers and thoughts to the little girl's family.
A family now left to cope with the unthinkable. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Durham police are investigating after a teenager was injured in a stabbing this afternoon. It happened over the lunch hour at a park near Harmony Road and Adelaide Avenue in Oshawa. Police say there was an altercation that resulted in a 15-year-old boy being stabbed. He's being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. There are a number of schools close to the scene, but it's unclear if the victim was a student. Police haven't released any suspect information. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, first day of December, and it's feeling a bit milder out there tonight.
Yeah, Kelda, I mean, the temperatures we're experiencing right now, very unusual for this time of the year, but also then this time of the day, right? So we're seeing that temperature kind of nearly steady around, there are some variations, but around 5 degrees for the overnight. And then it will be coming up with that southwesterly flow and much milder air pushing in, a little bit breezy, and we do have some wet weather to go along with the milder conditions. So just looking at those showers as they're working their way into the province, fairly light at this point, and then another batch coming through in the overnight hours, and it will have an impact on the morning commute. I mean, this is rain because of the temperatures, right? Not snowfall, but still making for some wet roadways, and at times there'll be a few areas where it's a bit heavier. You can see that pocket north of London that's going to be pushing through, especially northern regions of the GTA. Now, into the afternoon, we will see some partial clearing, but still a few scattered showers around, and then late in the day we've got some colder air that'll move in, and we'll get into some lake effect because of that. So everything's going to mix up pretty quickly. That temperature, as you see overnight, and 8 degrees for our high tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Colette. Toronto police are searching for a man who allegedly pushed another man onto the subway tracks last week. The victim was then struck and dragged by a train. Now, this is who they are looking for. The incident happened last Friday at Bloor-Yonge subway station at around 5:30. Police say the 36-year-old victim was carrying a large box and made accidental contact with the suspect. An argument followed and the man was shoved, falling onto the tracks as the train approached. He was treated for his injuries in hospital. Police not releasing any details on the extent of his injuries. They described the suspect as 6 feet tall with a slim build and light brown hair, carrying a blue backpack with a floral pattern. They're asking anyone with information to contact them. A Scarborough MPP tabled a private member's bill today that, if passed, would recognize gun violence as a public health issue. MPP Mitzi Hunter says the holistic approach would tackle the issue of gun violence at its root.
This legislation will acknowledge the shattering impacts of gun violence that it has on communities and give people affected by gun violence the resources that they need to heal, which is long overdue.
The bill would allow for the creation of programs which address the long-term impacts of gun violence, and counseling for those impacted would be covered by OHIP. Now, Hunter hosted a roundtable discussion tonight with community members affected by gun violence.
Trying to find myself and my children services after my son was killed was extremely difficult because there isn't anything available that don't have to pay for.
So far this year, there have been 78 homicides in Toronto, surpassing last year's total of 61. 43 Division Police responded to 7 shootings in Scarborough during the month of November alone. Metrolink says it's going to take longer than anticipated to reopen a stretch of GO train track east of the city.
The damage to the tracks and to the track infrastructure around there, including the rail bed, are quite extensive. And so it's going to it's going to require several days of work in order for us to be able to move trains safely through that area.
Crews working to get the car that tipped over back onto the rail. A GO service on the Lakeshore East Line has been interrupted since the incident on Saturday left a worker dead. The 71-year-old man became pinned under a rail car. Now, he was part of a team doing construction and maintenance work near the Rouge Hill GO station. Metrolinx says reduced service on the Lakeshore East Line will continue through the weekend. There are also bus connections being provided in between Pickering and Gilwood stations. It's the return of ski season in Ontario, and operators hope it's better than the last. We'll look at what riding the hills will look like this year and how people are feeling to return to the slopes coming up. Welcome back. The ski hills at Horseshoe Resort in Barrie are now officially open for the season. Skiers and snowboarders were more than ready to hit the slopes today after being shut out last year because of the pandemic restrictions. Ali Chiasson has more from Barrie.
The hills are alive with the sound of skiers and snowboarders once again.
It feels amazing. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm glad that they're open. Everything's so fun right now.
Last year at Horseshoe Resort in Barrie, there were capacity restrictions. You had to book tickets online weeks in advance. Now you can just grab your gear and go.
We were in class and one of my friends mentioned it and I just figured why not come out? It's not too busy.
What time is it? You guys aren't skipping class, are you, for this?
Just a little bit.
For the people who run Horseshoe Resort, today is a big deal. They're the first to open this year, hoping to make up for last.
We laid off almost 700 people on Christmas Eve. So it was a time that you'd never want to relive.
Ontario was closed for 7 weeks from Christmas Day through to middle of February. We were closed. We were the only jurisdiction in North America to close, and the rest of those jurisdictions recorded no documented cases of COVID-19 transmission between the skier population.
The Ski Council of Canada says operators respected the rules, but it cost them
upwards of $100 million worth of revenue that we lost. It put a lot of business people on the ropes. We haven't lost anybody, but I can tell you there are operators from Barrie to Ottawa that have not taken a paycheck in 19 months.
The general manager of Horseshoe Resort says they're doing everything they can to stay safe and to stay open.
The ticketing area and rental area is treated under the retail regulations, and then any food and beverage outlet is treated as per restaurant where you need to be vaccinated.
They're keeping on top of the pandemic developments to avoid surprises.
It's sort of a day-by-day thing as you listen to what's happening and going on, and the team's ready to adapt, and it can't be any worse than last year's.
Grateful is definitely the word around here today.
Any time that I can get outside and spend with my family is special, so I'm definitely grateful that we have this ability to do this.
Way better than a press conference.
I do snowboarding.
Oh, that's so cool. What do you like about snowboarding?
Going so fast.
Oh, it's amazing. Perfect conditions, perfect weather. It's a beautiful day out here.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Barrie.
Our Blue Jays welcoming a new player to the team today. Kevin Gausman says the team's potential is what brought him to Toronto.
And honestly, one of the biggest factors for me, at this point in my career is I want to go somewhere and win. And, I want to win a championship. And that's really my goal now. There's a lot of youth here, a lot of guys who are going to be here under team control for a long time and very talented group too.
He signed a 5-year, $110 million contract. The 30-year-old pitcher will be counted on to provide some star power to the team's pitching rotation. You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, partly cloudy with light rain this evening, becoming showers overnight. Currently 4 degrees in the city, pretty mild for December, and it will be getting even milder. For more on that, let's go back to Colette. And Colette, showers sticking around for much of the morning as the warm-up continues.
Yeah, they will be nearly steady tonight and then coming up tomorrow, well above seasonal, kind of double where we should be at this time of year. But with the wet weather, I would allow a little extra time tomorrow morning. The morning commute likely going to be pretty wet on those roadways. But the mild conditions, they stick around into the afternoon. It will be breezy, and then those winds will change direction. And when they do, that's when we'll find that colder air filtering in later in the day tomorrow. And I do want to point out, we're still looking at a storm coming in Sunday into Monday. today. It does look like it's more of a milder storm in terms of for the GTA, that it would be more rain than snow, but could get into a mix and messy on the roadways. So that's something we're watching carefully there for you too. There's a look at some of the lighter precipitation and then a batch of some heavier and more widespread and a little more organized rainfall that comes through, lingers into tomorrow morning. That pulls through, and even though we'll get some partial clearing, so there'll be some sunny breaks, we are going to see still some scattered showers and some elevations, a little bit of mixed precipitation, but the temperatures at that point still mild. The winds are just kind of shifting direction behind the cold front, and then once that cold air comes in, we will see some lake effects setting up. So do know it is going to be a breezy day tomorrow, not just a wet one that we'll be watching. And by the way, just taking a look into Friday, not so bad to start off with some sun, and then we'll get more cloud cover coming in. And late Friday into Saturday, a system that's going to push through pretty rapidly, so I don't expect high accumulations of snow, but a little bit of a dusting coming our way. So those temperatures, very unusual. These are not daytime. These are your overnight temperatures as they're steady or rising. And boy, are they rising tomorrow. Really breezy conditions in the morning hours there for southwestern Ontario, quite gusty, and then they'll back off somewhat. Tonight, 4 to 6 degrees, except for Oshawa. You'll be at 3 degrees with that wind coming in off the lake. And then a look at the breezy but mild conditions for tomorrow before the door shuts and that cold air comes right on in at us. Kelda.
All right. Thanks so much, Colette. The ROM is unveiling a new permanent exhibition called The Dawn of Life, and we got an early look.
To bring it to life, we've used immersive digital tools, interactives, and other ways where people can really understand that story and have the sense of awe about how life evolved on our planet. This covers almost 4 billion years of evolutionary history.
The exhibition covers the earliest microbes to the emergence of dinosaurs. The 10,000 square foot gallery includes 1,000 fossil specimens. And speaking of fossils, a dinosaur that roamed the southern tip of South America more than 70 million years ago has been identified. Fossils of the creature were unearthed in the Patagonia region of Chile. The Stegosaurus was a relatively small armored dinosaur, about 2 meters in length. It lived on plants and defended itself by swatting predators with a short club-like tail. It lived during the Cretaceous period in the twilight of the dinosaur era. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Farmer Alley has you covered at 11. Have a great night, everyone.